Higher, faster, further. Mankind is always looking ahead. So what is still considered the latest technical fad today will be hopelessly outdated in just a few years. In the face of this striving for progress and innovation, however, we shouldn't forget one thing: new is not always better. This has resulted in some impressive technologies and designs that are still several steps ahead of their modern counterparts in terms of efficiency and sustainability. Today, we want to take a closer look at 10 of these ancient inventions with you. Be curious about sophisticated heating systems, precise equipment, and indestructible building materials. Let's get started. If you like what you see today, be sure to hit the like button and ring the notification bell for more videos. Also, stick around until the end to see what type of strange invention has researchers completely stunned. Ancient underfloor heating. Today's journey begins in Seoul. In the South Korean capital, we find the magnificent Gyeongbokgung, a royal palace that's undergone many exciting changes over time. A few years ago, under a pavilion of the complex, archaeologists stumbled across a special variant of the traditional Korean heating system. The building in question is located on an artificial island. When the ancient Joseon dynasty got cold feet, they could resort to a clever construction called an ondol. What's special about this traditional underfloor heating system is the fact that the hearth is not in the room that's to be heated. Instead, the hot air flows through special ducts into the main room, where it heats up the stones on the floor. However, the recently discovered ondol system, built together with the pavilion in the second half of the 19th century, now has a unique structure. Unexpectedly, the heat transfer duct system and the smoke duct are located on the edge of the hexagonal room. Normally, however, the warming pipes always ran through the entire room. A tradition that's endured to this day may have started with the introduction of the ondol system, the Korean culture of sitting. On cold days, the residents preferred to sit on the warm floor, where they worked, ate, and slept. Sword of GOUJIAN. As briefly mentioned at the beginning, today's technologies are by no means made for eternity. The breathtaking find of the GOUJIAN sword shows that sustainability was still very important in ancient times. Recovered from a Chinese tomb in 1965, the bronze sword is still in excellent condition, despite having spent the last 2,000 years in the wet ground. Based on the inscriptions, it's certain that this was once the weapon of a powerful king. What the gnawing ravages of time can't do in thousands of years, man can do in a few moments. In 1994, the sword was loaned to Singapore, where a worker accidentally banged the blade against a display case. The result was an unsightly scratch and China's decision not to lend the precious artifact to other countries in the future. INCA irrigation. The Persians were not the only people with a knack for sophisticated irrigation systems. Some time-honored buildings from the Inca period also showed that the indigenous population of South America had impressive technical knowledge. The construction of the Moray complex shows how well the Incas knew how to weave the natural environment into their buildings. Moray was built in 3 natural sinkholes. This may seem a bit unusual, but keep watching to see how this all comes together. Here, the Inca people created countless terraced plateaus, which are laid out in such a way that each step has its own individual microclimate. This made it possible for the members of the Inca culture to grow a wide variety of crops there. The water supply was channeled into the various parts of the facility via a complex system of canals. Incidentally, we find such Inca terraces not only in Moray, but even the most diverse regions that were once inhabited by this tribe. These unique slopes serve the purpose of growing numerous foods and thus preventing food crises. Among other things, the Incas planted potatoes, corn, tomatoes, peanuts, and peppers here. It may seem unusual that such a tribe would be able to plan out and create such a complicated system for growing crops. However, these tribes seem to have had a better understanding of the natural world than we do, even after years of research have gone by. The Inca people had truly mastered the art of surviving and adapting to the natural world. Leg prosthesis more than 2,000 years old. In our modern day, prostheses are by no means just simple stumps. They're genuine, high-tech constructions. The so-called myoelectric prosthesis is currently intended to help those affected find their way back to normal life. With the muscles of the remaining arm stump, the patient is able to carry out movements with the prosthesis at different speeds and strengths. The Capua stilt, on the other hand, gives us an authentic insight into the beginnings of this fascinating technology. It's considered to be the oldest surviving prosthetic leg in history. Discovered together with a skeleton in the 1880s, the prosthesis was made around the year 300 BC. In detail, it was an artificial leg that replaced the right lower leg. A thin layer of bronze was fixed over a core of wood. It's unclear whether the construction once had an artificial foot. This mystery will probably never be solved. The Capua stilt was destroyed in a German air raid on London in 1941. Lycurgus chalice. The question of what color the Roman Lycurgus chalice has can be answered as follows. It always depends. If the light falls on the cup from behind, it shines in a rich red. However, if it's illuminated from the front, it presents itself in a green glow. This so-called dichroic glass, which is permeable to certain wavelengths and reflects others, is responsible for this impressive play of colors. In the 4th century AD, the creators incorporated tiny amounts of gold and silver nanoparticles into the glass material, achieving the desired effect. Iron Pillar of Delhi. The Iron Pillar of Delhi has graced the courtyard of the Quwwat-ul-Islam Mosque for at least 700 years. However, its actual history goes back much further. The monument was probably built during the reign of Chandragupta II, who was in power until the year 414. Given its age, it's all the more astonishing that the iron column is still in remarkably good condition. What's always kept the building from rusting is not clearly known. One explanation is based on the high phosphorus content of the outer protective layer. Another theory relates to the special layer thickness. This allows the sun to heat the column during the day so that all residual water evaporates. Oldest seismograph. The Chinese polymath Zheng Heng achieved many notable milestones during his career. Among other things, he reformed the calendar system and constructed the first armillary sphere, an astrometric measuring device that rotates around its own axis with the help of hydropower. However, one of Zheng Heng's most famous achievements is the invention of what is probably the first seismograph in history. Inside the bronze device was a pendulum that was highly sensitive to vibrations. Depending on the direction from which the earthquake came, the corresponding dragon dropped a small ball into the mouth of the toad sitting below. In 138 AD, an earthquake was recorded in this way, the epicenter of which was almost 400 miles away. Unfortunately, the original was lost over the centuries. What we see in museums today are detailed replicas. The PHAISTOS disc. abstract symbols and representations of people, animals, and objects. The PHAISTOS disc is rightly one of the most important finds from the Bronze Age. However, this exciting artifact has always been accompanied by one major downer. We have no idea what purpose the disc once served. More specifically, virtually all questions about the disc remain unanswered. Who created the object? What's up with the symbols? How do you decipher the hidden message? It's uncertain whether we'll ever be able to shed some light on this great historical darkness. Since no comparable counterpart has been recovered so far, researchers have practically no solid clues in their decryption attempts. Merely trying it out is not a worthwhile alternative. In the event that it is a syllabary, there would be an almost unbelievable number of possibilities. So we can only speculate about the true content of the disc. Some historians believe that the text is about a Greek king. Others interpret the disc as an astronomical document, but the calendar theory is also discussed again and again. Opus CAEMENTICIUM. Outside of archaeological journals, the fascinating building material from antiquity is better known as Roman concrete. What makes this so-called masonry so special is its incomparable durability. Although the age of the Romans passed many centuries ago, many of their buildings are still standing. Modern concrete, on the other hand, has a lifetime of just 100 to 120 years. But how is it that the ancient buildings simply don't crumble? The extraordinary strength is due to a very specific component, volcanic ash. Mixed with sand, water, rocks, and burnt lime, the Romans created a kind of concrete that could be shaped in any way and was significantly more durable than modern building materials. Stone saws. If we were to take a look back into the time of the ancient Egyptians, many of us would be left wondering how these ancient people were able to do the things that they were able to do. Obviously, it goes without saying that the pyramids are some of the most complex pieces of work that have ever been uncovered. We still don't know how these people managed to lift these bricks and place them in such a complicated shape. However, another question arises when we realize that these bricks were precisely cut by a sophisticated piece of machinery. The problem with this fact is that we've never been able to find out what sort of technology the Egyptians would have used to cut such precise lines into stone blocks. Even today, cutting stone is very difficult and requires special tools to do it properly. Oftentimes, these machines that are used to cut stone run on either electricity or gasoline, so it's easy to see why it would have been so difficult for the ancients to have created such a complicated machine. Experts have noted that there are saw marks on the stones that prove that they would have been cut with some sort of primitive saw. When examining these marks more closely, it also becomes apparent that the blades used to cut these stones would have been incredibly sharp, far sharper than what would have been readily available at the time. Stranger still, researchers noted that the saw would have been moved back and forth with laser-like precision. This would not have been done by hand. However, we have no idea what sort of machinery would have been used to create such precise lines in the stone. HAL-SAFLIENI HYPOGEUM. Around 3800 BC, our ancestors decided to build a grandiose underground complex in Malta. In all likelihood, what's known as the Hypogeum served as a burial site and sacred pilgrimage site in use for a period of 1,300 years. Peppered with many underground passages, halls, and niches, the real sensation of the site is invisible to the naked eye. Its structure vibrates at 111 Hz, the so-called sacred frequency. Today we know that such acoustics have a special effect on our brain. At a frequency of 111 Hz, our thinking apparatus shuts down the prefrontal cortex, causing us to find ourselves in a kind of meditative trance. Some believe that this sacred frequency makes it possible to get in touch with the universe or even the Creator. This spectrum is also used in alternative sound therapy to combat addictions or fears. Damascus steel. When the Crusaders invaded the Orient in the 11th century, they experienced a harsh reality. The swords of their opponents were vastly superior to their own. The sabers, which had a characteristic wave pattern in the blade, were not only much sharper, but also more stable and flexible than the weapons of the Christians. The material from which these deadly blades were made came to be known as Damascus steel, although that name is misleading. In fact, this unique forging technique was not developed in Damascus, but in India, before it was mysteriously lost in the late 18th century. For a long time, it wasn't possible for scientists to unravel the secret of Damascus steel, but then they came across an amazing clue. Microscopic examination showed that the blades contained carbon nanotubes. This medieval nanotechnology not only gave the swords their unmistakable pattern, but possibly also their special sharpness. All right, folks, now it's your turn. Which invention of our ancestors did you find most exciting? We're already looking forward to your comments. Please give us a thumbs up if you liked today's video. Also, while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Unknown List and click the bell to stay up to date from now on. Want more videos about the most exciting discoveries of all time? Then finally take a look at the other posts on our channel, which we've linked for you here in the credits. Thank you for watching. Have a good one and see you next time.